matters important to people who have created them. So if I can reduce what I mean even further than before, I'd do it with this quote. We have no serious alternative than to be wonderful. So please let me know when you've done something wonderful. Thanks very much. So I still have like half an hour if you would ask me. Because if you try and just sign up with Brandon, it's always taken, but no, 3Ns is never taken. It's that simple, sorry. I can make them available, but they're about like 150 megs at this point. We can figure something out if you'd like.
That's fine.
In E3, there was talk that the indie side was getting smaller. The E3 that's happened this year. I was in the impression it was getting bigger, but they said at E3 it seemed to be indies being pushed out. What are your thoughts on that?
Who was saying that?
What I read on Kotaku and IGN.
Oh yeah.
The internet.
The internet said that.
And also the people that I know that went there said indie was like pushed to the corner and it was a lot smaller than it was.
Indie specifically at E3?
Yes.
Has indie really ever had a big showing at E3? I haven't really seen one. I mean, we had IndieCade this year at E3, and I think that was actually the first year that had ever been there.
Last year.
Sorry?
Last year they had 26, this year they had 13.
Oh, you're saying just the games within IndieCade are getting smaller. I have seen absolutely no signs of indie slowing down whatsoever. If anything, like, especially in Austin with big studios closing down, like there's a lot of people going indie, whether by necessity or by like that creative passion, and I have not seen any signs slowing down. You know, year over year with the IGF, like things are almost growing exponentially, the number of entrants. So,
IGF is getting bigger, isn't it? I mean, everything in its place. E3 is for commercial projects that are, you know, big Hollywood budget style productions, but IGF is massive now.
yeah.
And,
Yeah, I think E3 is kind of the wrong venue for that. I mean,
just curious, is IGF interested in doing sort of regional finals before they do the big international one?
what I know is that, you know, last year in Austin we had an Indie Gaming Summit, which is not coming back this year. I think, you know, they would very much like to draw everybody to San Francisco every year. That's as much as I know on that.
So we've got, I think, one here, and then we'll come back. So do you need the mic, or?
No. Did you release any ZZT games?
I never actually released them, and they're on a floppy disk somewhere, and I really want to find them again, because, you know, they're sort of terrible, but they're sort of awesome, and I'd like to go back and do that.
There's someone here.
Did you say you, sorry, did you say at the beginning you started Off-World? And why?
Yes.
Yeah, what got you into starting that?
It was a pretty awesome thing. Like, Boing Boing decided that they wanted a gaming site. They asked a couple people, and kind of independently, everyone said, don't, like, Pasco, go get Brandon, like, don't interview anybody else. And it was kind of magical. Like, they just gave me total creative freedom and said, do what you want to do. And I said, I want to make it all about, like, indie and iPhone games. And they were like, perfect, like, do it. Which, you know, it's not there anymore. But it was an awesome ride.
You were saying that obviously that indie games have been muscled out by studios with big budgets. Do you have any thoughts or ideas as to how like little indie games can sort of like shine up and get noticed?
I think, if anything, like the past 2 weeks have shown with like Osmos and with Solid Skier and all these games that are coming out, that like just being smart and just, like I say, like putting yourself into it and like making it your burning passion, like people recognize that like immediately. I mean, there's however 50,000 games on the App Store, and still these, you know, indies with no ad budget whatsoever have risen like straight to the top. I don't necessarily agree with Peter Molyneux at all on that. I've seen nothing but like the best people consistently rise to the top, and if not, like make themselves fabulously wealthy, like they can survive and they can do what they want to do.
Hi, best break my question up into two parts. Firstly, what's your definition of indie? Because it's a bit nebulous as a definition. And secondly, when it comes to a big studio making small games, like EA goes and makes a small indie section and they make personalized games, how is a personal project made by some local developer, two people in a garage, how can there be, what's the edge to making it that way and not making it as the small group in the life world?
I sort of wish we had Kyle Gray here who could answer that like much better than I could. He's the guy that made Henry Hatsworth for DS within EA. Was the first question like, how do I define game? Oh, indie. Oh, how do I define indie? It's pretty hard because, you know, the guys that made all the Bit Trip games have had a publisher the entire time. I still totally consider them indie. There's a spirit of experimentation that I think plays a large part of it, and especially with the Bit Trip guys, it's that spirit of like, we need to actually make these games. Like, if we don't make them, no one's ever going to do it, and it needs to be out there in the world. And I think like, probably more than anything else, more than like business size or, you know, whether you get some publisher money, that's kind of what it is for me. I'm really not sure if I can answer the EA question. I mean, that may be it. Like, you know, the Bit Trip guys have done that under a publisher structure, but I still definitely think it's an indie game, and it's well, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
There's a phenomenon called taste tribes, where you follow people who reflect the things that you're interested in, and they go out and find awesome stuff, and you follow them so you can get exposed to awesome stuff. I follow Warren Ellis, the comic book author. He's always got awesome comics and fascinating music, and just out there sieving this stuff through his brain and sharing it with us, and that's really cool. I found that the stuff that we were doing with Boy Wine was great for that. I was following to be exposed to that kind of stuff. Is there anyone that you would recommend following to get exposed to awesome indie stuff? And I would say that the flip side of that is, if you want to do awesome indie stuff, make sure you're connected to the people that exist now, so that you can get exposed through those people.
I mean, I hope it's still me. It's not right now, and I'm as frustrated about that as anybody. Who do I follow? I got a lot of my stuff from this website called Tiny Cartridge. They mostly deal in like DS and retro stuff, but they have like a really good eye for interesting art and stuff like that. Other than that, like my Google Reader has ballooned to about like 2,000 blogs now, and I spend like 6 hours a day just reading RSS feeds, which is pretty insane and is kind of frying my brain a little bit. So there's tons of just like, it's all, I mean, the way that I ran Offworld and the way that was, really successful for me is that I found the people that were actually creating the things and added them all into Google Reader, and so like I didn't have any higher level people filtering that. It was just like I operated as the filter. I honestly think like Tiny Cartridge is the only blog out there that still kind of gives me stuff that I haven't seen before. Those are awesome guys.
Do we have a question in the middle?
Do you think it's possible to be too personal in games? I suppose personal to the point where you're vulnerable?
I don't know. I'm sort of all about vulnerability. And that's sort of this weird personal thing that I have with art. Like, I can't really enjoy movies if I don't feel some sort of essential humanity coming through them, and I feel like, to me, that's kind of what art exists for, is something that can teach me like what it means to be a better human being, or at least teach me that other people are having these same experiences that I feel totally alone in. So like on a general high level, no, I don't think you can ever be like too human or too vulnerable, and that's like exactly what I look for out of almost everything.
Is it on? G'day, Brandon. I was speaking a couple of weeks ago with the art director for an Xbox Live arcade game called Ilomelo that's coming out by the end of the year. And I asked him, does he think that indie games one of the most vital things they can do is have a very distinctive, eye-catching and original visual design. Because, you know, obviously without the marketing budget, that's one of the best ways they can just be noticed, you know, because Limbo, one of the things that really worked for that is it looks so good and it looks so different. What's your response to that question?
I think that's definitely like the front line, and I think that's, you know, I don't like to give too much advice because I don't do this, but like for me, getting stuff and like, you know, sifting through 2,000 blogs and Google Reader, it's definitely the first thing that hits me is like the visual style. And, you know, with the like 2 videos that I just showed there, like, it's super easy to say, well, yes, it's really like beautiful, but what does that actually have to do with game mechanics or game design? But I think focusing on not necessarily like giving all priority to visuals, but putting it out there so that people have something that they can like immediately like impact with. I do think that's really important.
Sorry, I was just going to say, do you think like being indie, or the whole indie game thing is like a cultural phase, or do you think it's going to be quite sustained for some time? Like, is it just sort of like a, you know, hipster movement, or is it sort of like a
I think as much as in, I mean, at least in music, I think this is a new reality. I personally feel like we've kind of gone through the behemoth and are just back at the personal. I think it's where it started, and I don't really see it changing anytime soon.
What do you think could be done better with things like a visual style or anything else to inject more emotion into games? What about personal work into games, but what can you do to inject more emotion into games?
Inject more emotion into games? It's a hard question. Focus on character, focus on feeling. Just you know, I think that's what that game company does above all else. Is they try and tackle what is this game going to make me feel, and you know, they say that, you know, they drew a pie chart where games only like covered this much range of emotion, and they're interested in like that whole other circle. I don't know, like I'm pretty much done with just games about bullets, and I know that that's really easy. You know, I know that's what games do really well. It's kind of just that like shoot out and poke somebody, but like that doesn't really mean anything to me anymore. That's a terrible answer, but.
This is pretty closely related to the last one about visuals, but there was a bit of a debate, I suppose, on Twitter recently between Trent Pollack and, I forget how to pronounce his name, Manveer, Nels Anderson talked about it on Above 49 as well, about Limbo specifically, how mechanic-wise it's pretty much just a 2D platform that you could recreate it, or Little Big Planet if you wanted. But how personal can a game be if all the mechanics have already been used for years, I suppose is my question. Like how much can it rely on the visual and the ambience if the gameness of the game is still existing mechanics?
Well, I mean, what did Limbo do? They use set pieces that we've never seen before, and like, you know, nothing's ever really given me that kind of Lord of the Flies. Like, I don't know why these children are here. I don't know why they want to hurt me. Like, I mean, it's kind of as simple as that. Like, you know, Trent actually backpedals a little bit more if you talk to him in real life about it. But yeah, I mean, just as simple as that. Like, that's never happened to me before. And you know, my whole thing with Sleep is Death. Like the fact that I started out in this game naked in a public restroom. Like that's never happened to me before. There's so much other places that we could go, and we're just not going there at all.
I suppose what mechanics can do is to complement the visuals in like just getting something happening in the player's head. Whatever's happening in the player is what your game really is. That's what it is. But the question I want to ask Brandon is, it seems curious that even within the IGF there needs to be a nouveau section for innovative game designs. And I looked into many games to try and find interesting things, exciting things. So I've been playing games for like 30 years, and so have a lot of other people in this room, I suppose. So I was wondering, are we confusing polish for trying to expand our language and vocabulary of game design and what we can do with games? Or do you think, you know, how do we keep this balance in check? Because you need polish to sell your game, and everyone has to be really savvy in terms of like marketing terms. But I get the feeling that a lot of people are putting